This is Stephen Clark. Welcome to Spaceflight Now's live coverage of the splashdown of the Inspiration 4 mission. The Crew Dragon spacecraft is scheduled to splash down in the Atlantic Ocean just northeast of Kennedy Space Center at 7:06 p.m. Eastern Time, 23:06 UTC, and ending a 3-day mission, the first all-private, non-government human spaceflight to Earth orbit. SpaceX's live webcast of the re-entry preparations and the return to Earth is scheduled to begin in just about 1 minute at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. If the weather cooperates and the skies are clear, we'll attempt to track the Crew Dragon spacecraft as it flies nearly directly overhead Kennedy Space Center on the way to the splashdown zone. However, there are some scattered clouds in the area and a blanket of high-level cirrus clouds that may prevent any visual sighting of the spacecraft as it re-enters. But we'll do our best, and if we see it, we'll bring it to you live.
Good afternoon and welcome to SpaceX's splashdown coverage of the world's first all-civilian astronaut mission to orbit. My name is Andy Tran, a quality engineer at SpaceX.
And I'm Jesse Anderson, a production and engineering manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Today, we are awaiting the return of our 4 incredible civilian astronauts, Jared Isaacman, Dr. Cyan Proctor, Haley Arsenault, and Chris Sembrowski.
These 4 astronauts are wrapping up the 3rd and final day on orbit in preparation for splashdown in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Florida at approximately 4:06 p.m. Pacific time in just about an hour from now. The crew's return to Earth officially began yesterday around 3:19 Pacific time when they initiated their first downhill phase burn, followed by the second downhill phase burn roughly an hour later.
Now, each of these events involved short firings of Dragon's Draco thrusters to lower Dragon's altitude in advance of re-entering the Earth. Following these 2 burns, the crew finished out a day of medical research, calls with family, and then turned in for their last night of sleep on Dragon around 2:30 a.m. Pacific time. Now, just before 1 p.m. Pacific time today, the Inspiration 4 crew donned their spacesuits and made their final cabin preparations before they begin the last series of operations prior to splashdown.
Yeah, we have a lot of events coming up today, so let's walk through the dynamic activities ahead of us this afternoon. Coming up in a few minutes at 3:09 p.m. Pacific time, we have claw separation. Dragon has to move into the proper attitude or angle in order to separate the trunk so that they don't deorbit together. The claw connects the trunk to the capsule. It also delivers power, telemetry, and fluids. So claw separation is the first step in separating that trunk. Trunk separation is next. That happens around 3:12 p.m. Pacific time. Once the trunk is separated, Dragon is running entirely on battery power. So if you're looking at the animation on your screen right now, the trunk is the bottom half of the section of the Dragon vehicle, the cylindrical portion. That will detach and leave just the capsule returning back to Earth. A few minutes after trunk separation at 3:17 p.m. Pacific time, we'll have the beginning of the deorbit burn. This is the last time that we'll use the forward bulkhead thrusters, and after that, we'll close the nose cone and lock it in preparation for re-entry. That deorbit burn is expected to last for about 15 minutes, and that is what will line up Dragon for re-entry into Earth's atmosphere. As the cabin continues to increase in in temperature a little bit, there's nitrox that is used to cool the cabin and the suits to keep the crew nice and comfortable.
The orbit sequence start in 5 minutes. You are now live.
And copy that, SpaceX. We show the same.
So what we heard was the crew operations and resource engineer, also known as the core, communicating to the crew on Dragon. We'll hear those throughout the cast today as Dragon continues to prepare for deorbit and eventual splashdown on Earth. But so as we begin the deorbit burn and Dragon begins to make its way back to the Earth's atmosphere, we do pump nitrogen and oxygen through the cabin to make sure that the astronauts are nice and cool.
And then we will close the nose cone, and this will cover the forward hatch thrusters that we use in the deorbit burn, and it also protects the cupola during re-entry. And then during re-entry, we will have a known calm blackout period of time. This is an expected loss of communications with Dragon for about 7 minutes as Dragon passes back into the Earth's atmosphere. About 7 minutes later, we will regain that communication around 3:53 p.m. Pacific time, although the timing is not exact.
A few minutes after we get communications back, we're going to start to deploy our parachutes. First up, we have the drogue parachutes, and on screen now is test footage of the drogue chutes and the main chutes, testing the parachute system, make sure that everything is good. And these have gone through numerous amounts of tests to make sure that they are safe for flight. The drogue chutes are two smaller parachutes that are designed to stabilize the Dragon and slow it down before release of the main chutes, which you just saw on screen. Those are the 4 orange and white larger parachutes that will further slow down the spacecraft. Over the course of the 3-minute descent, the drogue and mains work together to bring vehicle velocity down from 350 miles per hour to just 15 miles an hour, at which point we have splashdown. And that's expected to occur right at 4:06 p.m. Pacific time. After we splash down, we have about an hour before the recovery crew and recovery team goes through their checklist of procedures before we can get the crew out of the capsule.
So we do have a very exciting day ahead of us. Now, once it's time for our crew to deorbit and splash down back on Earth, they'll be heading to one of the targeted sites supported by SpaceX. Now, all of these sites are located off the coast of Florida, either in the Gulf of Mexico or the Atlantic Ocean. And spreading the supported sites across multiple locations helps to maximize the return opportunities for this mission and future crews, lowering the chance that we'll have to wave off due to bad weather. Now, since Dragon is capable of splashdown on either side of the Florida Panhandle, we have 2 identical and fully equipped recovery vessels ready to support, one in the Gulf of Mexico and the other in the Atlantic Ocean. And it looks like we also got a live view onboard Dragon with our Inspiration 4 crew.
Yes, this is the over-the-shoulder view. On the left-hand side, that is the mission commander, Jared Isaacman, and to his right is the mission pilot, Dr. Cyan Proctor. So what they're interacting with are some LCD screens on Dragon that gives them a ton of information about the vehicle, about the mission profile, and they'll be tracking the Dragon vehicle all the way down to splashdown today.
Yeah, and Dragon is flying autonomously, but they will be following along with each dynamic event that happens so that they are aware of every event that does happen, as they're going to feel a lot of the things that are happening.
Yeah, so we're expecting them to experience about 3 to 5 Gs on re-entry. And I believe, is he watching a movie? That is great. They're just relaxing, very nice and comfortable inside Dragon.
Yeah, it looks like they're you know, entertaining themselves on their flight back home, essentially.
Yeah, so that tablet that's attached to Chris Zembroski's thigh also provides them with a ton of checklists throughout their duration of the mission. It also provides them with some entertainment as well, which Chris is enjoying. And I would be remiss to mention that Haley, who we got a brief shot of, she was sitting on the far right-hand side next to the window of Dragon. Haley Arsenault is the medical officer, and that will round out the Inspiration 4 crew. So in the lead up today, SpaceX selected primary and alternate splashdown locations off the coast of Florida. The selection process works with a lot
Dragon, deorbit sequence start.
And copy that, SpaceX. We show same.
Cool, so we got the call from the core that the deorbit sequence is starting. Again, we're going to be starting off with the separation of the claw and then eventually the trunk. So again, you'll hear those beeps throughout the cast today. Those are Quindar tones, and effectively what those do is they help to clear the air to make sure that communication to and from the crew and ground are nice and clear. So Jesse and I will try to pause and make sure that you guys also are able to listen in to that as well. But I was mentioning the splashdown sites. So we have primary and alternate splashdown sites located off of the coast of Florida. The selection process works, and it takes into account a lot of different variables. And it looks at weather. It looks at you know, wave height, wave period, visibility as well.
Yeah, and you can see on your screen, this is the primary landing site. And it looked like the waters were pretty calm, so that's pretty great. Today, our primary landing site will get the crew back home with a splashdown at about 4:06 p.m. Pacific time today. And for return, we'll be looking at a number of weather items. Some of the obvious ones that we do take into account is that there's no rain or chance of lightning in the recovery zone, both for the safety of the crew inside the capsule, but also the recovery teams on the water. We're also looking for wind speeds less than 15 feet per second or about 10 miles per hour, relatively calm seas so that we can safely execute recovery operations, which includes landing a helicopter on the recovery ship to fly Jared, Haley, Cyan, and Chris back to Florida.
Yeah, and if you've been following along since Wednesday, we had mentioned that for this particular mission, weather was of particular importance. The Inspiration 4 crew did not go for an extended duration to the International Space Station. They were orbiting the Earth for the duration of their mission, so we had to make sure that weather was good on ascent, at liftoff, and also for splashdown today. But as Jesse mentioned, looks like we have some pretty good visibility. The waves are not choppy, and so things are looking great for an on-time splashdown later on today.
And for these operations, SpaceX closely coordinates with the United States Coast Guard to establish a safety zone to ensure public safety and for the safety of those involved in the recovery operations, as well as the crew on board the returning spacecraft. Multiple notices are issued to the mariners in advance and during recovery operations, and Coast Guard patrol boats are deployed to discourage boaters from entering the splashdown zones. Now, we want to stress to the public the need to respect this safety zone. Recovering a spacecraft from the water is a hazardous operation, and any other boats interfering increases risk to the astronauts in the capsule, the teams working to recover them from the water, and the safety of those that come too close. So for the safety of our crew and for your safety, we recommend that you sit back and watch as we'll be bringing you the best possible views of our astronauts' homecoming.
Dragon, nominal trunk jettison.
And copy that, SpaceX. We definitely felt it.
So it looks like we had successful claw separation. Again, that detaches the umbilical that routes power and fluids from the trunk to Dragon. So now Dragon has also separated its trunk successfully. And so that does a couple of things for us. When we re-enter and the parachutes deploy, we want to make sure that there is as little mass as possible. It gives the parachutes a bit easier time to decelerate the vehicle. The second thing it does is there are some heat some heat shields and some Pica tiles that we'll talk about a little bit later on. And their job is to protect the capsule and the crew from all of the heat that's being generated during reentry. Jettisoning the trunk exposes that heat tile and allows it to face forward during reentry.
Yeah, and again, now the Dragon capsule is on battery power. So the trunk typically provides power while they're in orbit. Now that we no longer have the trunk, it is working on battery power, and it will have enough battery power and then some to make its way back home to Earth.
So up next, we have the Deorbit burn. This is the last time that the forward Dracos, which are the 4 thrusters located at the top of the vehicle, will ignite. The Deorbit burn will place Dragon on a precise trajectory to return to the splashdown zone off the coast of Florida and last about 15 minutes.
Yeah, and again, this journey back home actually started yesterday with 2-phase burns. Those 2-phase burns, as you may know, the crew made their way all the way out to 575 kilometers away from Earth. I think the furthest they went was 590 kilometers during their mission. But the two phase burns yesterday did bring them back down to approximately 365 kilometers. So after those phase burns, this helps bring them just a little bit closer to Earth. And then today, after we've now jettisoned the trunk, we will have a deorbit burn, which will set them on the trajectory back to the splashdown landing zone.
Yeah, so we are expecting that deorbit burn to begin in about 3 minutes. Again, it is going to last for about 15 minutes. And as Jesse mentioned, that is sort of the final burn before Dragon begins to reduce its altitude, get away from that orbital velocity of 17,500 miles an hour, and start to make its way to its splashdown zone off the coast of Florida.
Yeah,
So, very exciting day, and honestly for the crew, a very exciting week. If you've been following along, it hasn't even been a full week since they've started their dress rehearsals last Sunday. They lifted off and got into orbit on Wednesday, and now just a few days later, they're coming back home.
Yeah, and this has been such an incredible mission. Again, this mission was to help fundraise money for St. Jude. Their mission was to try and raise $200 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And again, just such an incredible mission with the first all-civilian crew on board, out in orbit, into space, but also inspiring the world. With all the positions that they selected for the seats for who should be on this mission, the seat of leadership, the seat of prosperity, the seat of generosity, and the seat of hope. So just an overall incredible last few days, and now we're currently bringing the crew back home, which is very, very exciting.
Yeah, and they've been quite busy, as all astronauts are, but I love that they were able to spend some time and they gave us an on-orbit update yesterday. We saw Chris play the ukulele. We saw Haley do some somersaults in space. I think Dr. Cyan also showed us the drawings that she had done in space too, which was phenomenal.
Just so amazing, and she's been inspired by their own launch, so she showed us some drawings of that, and just really cool to see the crew up there. They had a number of events as well. They did a call with some St. Jude patients while they were out in space, live in space, answering some out of this world questions. They also even got I heard they got a phone call from Tom Cruise.
Yes, I saw that as well. I wonder what their conversation was like, but I think it's quite interesting because we all know Tom Cruise from Top Gun, call sign Maverick. The crew themselves also got call signs because they were a part of a lot of fighter jet training and exercises, so I love that they were able to connect.
Yeah. That must be so exciting for them. Also, they've been doing some auctions. You know, we've had some auctions since the mission began, and they did some of that promotion as well. I can't wait to get one of the zero-G indicators.
Yes. I think those sold out very, very quickly.
Yeah.
The space dog, you might have seen it. We might be able to get shots of it if we ever get shots inside the cabin again. But yeah, super cute, and also, again, represents a great cause. I do want to do a quick plug that if you are watching on YouTube, there is a Donate Now button on the right-hand side of your screen. We've fundraised a ton of money so far. I think since Wednesday, we've raised an additional $20 million. So we're at about $153 million raised out of the total goal of $200 million. So thank you to everyone that has already donated. And if you can donate in any way, shape, or form, please do. Super appreciate it. And again, it's all for a great cause.
Yeah, such an incredible mission again. They also got the chance, yesterday was Friday, they did get to ring the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange, which is pretty awesome. You can see them there. You can see how excited they are too.
Yeah, I think every time we've seen the crew, they've had smiles in their face, even during ascent, right?
Oh,
We saw
yeah.
Dr. Cyan just exuding excitement. And so this crew really is something else. And I'm so glad that they got to experience the things that they experienced, and all the outreach that they've done so far is quite amazing.
Yeah, and for the first all-civilian crew, these are some pretty incredible people. If you've been following along, or if you haven't seen it yet, Netflix and Time have a documentary on the crew and on the mission. Lets you get to know the crew a lot more and get to see what training they're going through. And this is an awesome live view from our selfie camera on the Dragon, looking at the Dragon cupola, and the sun looks amazing, Earth looks amazing.
Look at the clouds, that's
I know.
amazing. And for the inspiration for our crew to peek their head in there and get a first-person perspective through the brand new cupola, oh gosh, that is fantastic. And I think Chris has been very, very busy taking photos of the Earth through the cupola, and just trying to make as much of his time in space as possible and give back to the community. Oh, there he is.
And there he is with his camera. We've heard he's been taking tons and tons of photos up there. I can't wait to see what photos they have. There he is, inside of the cupola. Looks
yes,
awesome.
as busy as ever. And Chris himself, when he was younger, he used to stargaze on the rooftop of his high school. And so now he gets to Earth gaze from space. So we are getting confirmation that the deorbit burn has already begun. We're well into it. Again, it's going to last for about 15 minutes and end approximately at 3:32 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, and again, in the last 10 minutes or so, we've had a number of events during this deorbit sequence. We had claw separation. The claw is basically what attaches the Dragon trunk to the capsule and has umbilicals between the two. We've jettisoned the Dragon trunk, exposing the heat shields on the bottom of the capsule. And now we are currently in progress of the deorbit burn, which is going to basically deorbit the vehicle and get it on a trajectory on its way back home to Earth.
Yeah, the deorbit burn uses the Draco engines on Dragon. There's 16 of them on the forward sort of underneath the nose cone. There are 4 there, and after we're done with this deorbit burn, we're not going to need those 4 anymore, so we'll close the hatch. Dragon also has another subset of engines known as the Super Dracos. We're not using them as part of the Splashdown. They're super strong, and they're really only reserved for the launch escape system during ascent or in case there was an emergency, but we're just relying on the Draco engines right now.
And what you're looking at on your screen is a live view inside of Dragon. And on your left-hand side is the commander of this mission, Jared Isaacman. On the right-hand side was Dr. Cyan Proctor, the pilot for the mission. And again, awesome view from the outside, looking at the cupola on the Dragon and the 4 Draco thrusters. This is actually the location of where those 4 Draco thrusters are. And as Andy mentioned, once we do complete this deorbit burn, it's only going to last about 15 minutes. Once we complete that, we will begin to close the nose cone, which will basically cover this top portion that you're seeing on the screen.
Yeah, I love this shot. If you pay close attention, so the team is suited up in their spacesuits. The gloves themselves are actually conductive, so they can still use the touch screen and interface with the monitors through the spacesuits. And right now we have the visors up, but the suits themselves, the way they're created, it's a one-piece suit, and the helmets are actually 3D printed and customized for each of the crew members.
Yeah, and right now, Jared, Cyan, Haley, and Chris are currently using their screens on their tabs, and they're basically following along every one of these events. You know, they are out in space and inside of this vehicle, so when the thrusters do turn on, they do feel that, and they do hear some of that from inside of the capsule. It doesn't exactly sound like what you would hear an engine sound like down here on Earth, but they do hear some of the clicking of the valves when the engines do start.
Yeah, so the Inspiration 4 crew has been on orbit for about 3 days. We're expecting them to splash down in about 40 minutes, actually. And so, especially after we finish the deorbit burn, things are really going to start to move. We'll close the nose cone, and then we're going to start, the Dragon capsule is going to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. We're going to go through that period of communications blackout for a couple of minutes. And then the parachutes will deploy, and we're going to see them back here on Earth in just under 40 minutes.
Yeah, and this is a significant thing to mention. There will be a blackout period for approximately 7 minutes, and that happens when the vehicle does enter back into the Earth's atmosphere. Outside of the Dragon capsule will heat up to almost 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit, and what that will do is cause a layer of plasma around the vehicle, which will prevent some comms from coming through. But once they are through that period, we should be able to regain those comms. The core here in Mission Control Hawthorne will do some comm checks to make sure that they have reestablished those comms between Dragon.
So if you are just joining us, we are part of the Inspiration 4 mission for Splashdown. The team is targeted to splash down off the coast of Florida at approximately 4:06 p.m. Pacific time. Right now, we are in the middle of our deorbit burn. So this is the final burn before the Dragon spacecraft really is on its final trajectory towards that targeted landing site.
We're just about 10 minutes into the burn, meaning there's about 5 minutes left of that deorbit burn, and right now you are looking at a live view inside of the Dragon capsule of the crew, watching and checking things on their display panels there. Again, they are following along with all of the events so that they are aware of every expected event that is supposed to happen. And again, a awesome live view from the outside of our Dragon capsule on the forward end, looking at our amazing...
120 kilometers. Dragon is committed.
We just heard some comms that Dragon is committed. What that means is that they are committed to return back to Earth.
Yes, they are. They are coming back, which is super exciting. So I should mention at this point, Dragon itself is an extremely intelligent vehicle. It is largely autonomous and effectively flying itself. So it knows where it's at, its position in space. It knows where it's headed. It has the ability to adjust its attitude or angle and trajectory as needed to make sure it is headed where it needs to head. And so even through the communications blackout period, again, due to the temporary buildup of plasma that interferes with communications, even through that period, the crew really just has to sit back and enjoy the flight, because Dragon is smart enough to know where exactly it's going to be.
Yeah, so much so that we saw them watching some movies just a few minutes ago.
11 minutes.
You are hearing on the comms just some status updates of that deorbit burn. Again, this deorbit burn lasts about 15 minutes long, and we're getting close to completion here. And actually, something to note, if there are people watching live for Splashdown, they might actually get to hear the sonic boom as quickly as Dragon re-enters the Earth's atmosphere and is coming down. You know, they will be traveling faster than the speed of sound, so you'll get a sonic boom when they come back through.
Yeah, I think that the folks that are nearby or live close enough to the coast, they might even be able to see Dragon. It is a daytime splashdown, which is super exciting. So yeah, in about 35 minutes, we're expecting Dragon capsule resilience flying for the second time and returning for the second time, and the Inspiration 4 crew members to return back to Earth and splash down into the coast, off the coast of Florida.
Yeah, and again, we just heard a call out that we're probably about 3 minutes away from that deorbit burn completing. But yeah, Andy, it's been so exciting. Just this mission overall has been so incredible. Again, the first all-civilian crew to go to orbit, and they're raising money for St. Jude. It's just been an incredible mission so far. They've been out in space. You know, talking to St. Jude's patients, raising money, doing some science experiments for us so that we can see, you know, what does microgravity do to, you know, the regular person like you and me.
Valid, 13 minutes.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point that I don't think we've talked about yet, is all the science that they've done. We saw earlier in the week some experiments with some portable ultrasound devices. There's an experiment to study how fluid shifts and sort of the relevance of up and down in space that could potentially help contribute to motion sickness, both in space and back here on Earth. But the really cool thing, in my opinion, is all the data that they're going to gather, that's going to be put in a repository, and everyone has access to it, essentially. And so you typically don't get that with normal missions, but for Inspiration 4, I think one of the hallmarks is they wanted to make sure that they were trying to further science as much as possible and further human space exploration.
Yeah, having the access to that data available to literally the entire world only allows you to have, you know, as many people to utilize that research and you know, be able to do something with it. We're just that call out was just a minute remaining in this deorbit burn. Very exciting.
So after the deorbit burn, again, we won't need the Draco thrusters in the forward bulkhead anymore, and so we will be initiating the close of the nose cone. Oh, here's a great animation. The nose cone is the very, very top. You're going to see it latch open. That's where the Draco thrusters are at, but after they're done firing, we're actually going to be closing it. And so if you're here since the beginning of this particular cast, the bottom section of the capsule, that's the trunk section, the bottom half of that has already been jettisoned. And right now, the top portion, the capsule, that's where the crew is in. And that is what is returning to Earth and making it splash down off the coast of Florida here in a few minutes.
Burn termination. Burn stop. Nominal burn. Good targeting.
Dragon, deorbit burn complete, performance nominal. Nose cone closure is initiated.
Copy that, SpaceX. We show the same.
I believe that was Chris confirming that he had a nominal burn. Everything seems to be going great. And now, again, we've initiated the close sequence of the nose cone. So in the background, Dragon is currently inhibiting those forward bulkhead Draco thrusters that we had just used to complete the deorbit burn, ensuring that it's safe to latch the nose cone shut for re-entry. The vehicle also initiated the nitrox suit purge, and this will help keep the crew cool and comfortable during re-entry, which is coming up in about 20 minutes. At this point, the nose cone is closing and protecting the forward hatch for re-entry. The crew is using the screens that we saw earlier to monitor the locking of the nose cone, which is done actually by a set of hooks.
Yeah, and again, the nose cone doesn't just snap shut. It does take a few minutes, I think about 4 minutes or so to close. It is a very, technically and structurally sound seal that needs to happen there. So it needs to be very precise, which is why it's a very slow mechanism to make sure that it's closed.
Yes, and we mentioned earlier, as Dragon is re-entering, it's going to form plasma, and plasma is effectively superheated gas.
Entry attitude complete.
So that call out was for the slew being complete. So the slew is effectively maneuvering. And so we want to position Dragon and orient it a certain way before it starts to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. So that looks like it's going well. But I mentioned a little bit about the temperature buildup around the heat shield and Dragon. So we initiate a nitrox purge in both the cabin and the suits to keep the environment inside Dragon nice and cool. The suits themselves will automatically detect if temperatures go above 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and if it does, we'll just purge them with effectively air. It's the same sort of air that you would see in a scuba tank, and that keeps the astronauts nice and comfortable for their journey back to Earth.
It's basically their own personal AC system. And as we mentioned, we are coming up on the blackout period, which is about 10 minutes or so from now, or 10 minutes after nose cone closure. And during that event, the capsule, the exterior of the capsule will get to approximately 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. So as Andy mentioned, it is extremely important to keep the cabin cool, to keep the astronauts cool during this event. But Dragon was designed for this, so they shouldn't have any problems with 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, we've got some really cool material on the bottom. It's actually called Pika 3.0, and its job is basically to deflect and take on all of that heat and make sure that we keep the capsule and crew nice and cool again for their re-entry. If you're looking on screen right now, there is a capsule, Dragon capsule in the background. You can see at the very bottom the tiling of that Pika material. That is a returned capsule. So it's been through the Earth's atmosphere. It's taken on that 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit heat, and that's what we expect the capsule today to also look like upon re-entry.
Yeah, and this is a flown Dragon capsule. So while the spacecraft is in orbit, it's flying at about 17,500 miles per hour. But as it comes back through the atmosphere, we actually don't, there's no brakes on Dragon aside from the heat shield. And so that heat shield actually, with the atmosphere, helps to slow the vehicle down to about 350 miles per hour before the drogues even deploy.
Yeah, it's quite incredible to think about that. Orbital velocity, again, 17,500 miles an hour, being slowed down to just 350 miles an hour with just atmospheric drag alone. Is incredible. And then from there we deploy the chutes. And so most of the job, thank you to Earth's atmosphere for slowing down Dragon. Most of it is done by the friction up there. So we are waiting on the next event, which is we're going to be waiting on confirmation that the nose cone has been closed, and then we're going to be entering that blackout portion, the communications blackout period, a few minutes later. It is expected to last for about 7 minutes, and what I would expect to hear is we heard those Quindar tones, those beeps from crew to core and core to crew. Expect those to start to pop up again as we're coming out of that blackout period. We want to make sure that we reestablish communication with the crew.
Yeah, and actually, before we go into the blackout period, we should hear some comms as well. Again, the core here in Hawthorne, Mission Control Hawthorne, communicates with the team, makes sure that they know which event is coming up next so that they know what to expect. And so we should be hearing some of that confirmation that they will be going into the blackout period, as well as some confirmation and some comms when they exit
300
that
kilometer
period.
altitude.
So again, we are currently just waiting for confirmation of nose cone closure. Once we confirm that, the next event after that will be the blackout period that we have mentioned. Again, that will last about 7 minutes. What you're seeing on your screen right now is Mission Control Hawthorne here at SpaceX headquarters. Looks like you can see Gwen Shotwell sitting in the front row there, watching as our first all-civilian crew, the Inspiration 4 crew, returns back home to Earth.
Yeah, and the recovery team and the launch team did a great job looking at weather, looking ahead, because Florida weather in the fall it can be tricky, but we got excellent weather during liftoff on Wednesday, and a pretty darn good weather right now for Splashdown as well.
Yeah, when we did get some live views of the seas there, it did look pretty calm, which is exactly what we want. We want to make sure that during recovery, we have some steady seas, not just for the crew.
Dragon, nose cone is secure for entry.
Copy that, SpaceX. We show the same.
Sounds like we got that confirmation of nose cone closure.
So as we begin the second half of entry, Dragon is now beginning to flush nitrox into the cabin and continuing to top off the Inspiration 4 crew's suits with cool air. Again, this is what will allow the cabin temperature to remain comfortable, while external temperatures can reach upwards of 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit. Again, the heat shield is pointing forward. That's the leading structure that is going to be heading into re-entry, and that's going to be what leads the capsule to the landing site.
And again, the exterior of the capsule will get to approximately 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit, but again, Dragon was designed for this dynamic event, so there will be some cool air inside of the cabin. It's environmentally controlled, as well as through their suits. They do have their personal air conditioning inside of their suits, where they will get a flow of nitrox. And as Andy mentioned earlier, there are sensors in the suits, so they don't even have to think about if they're getting too hot or not. The suits will just automatically keep the environment controlled inside of their suits for them.
Okay, this is a great view of the suit. First off, looking super slick and super cool, but it is essentially a mini spacecraft. There's an umbilical from the leg portion that will hook up to Dragon, and that will route communications and electronics, as well as, again, routing the air needed to keep the suit pressurized in case of a depressurization event, or if they need to be purged with cool air, it can do that as well.
Yeah, and some of the cool manufacturing features, the helmet is 3D printed. The material of the exterior of the suit is heat resistant, as well as the gloves are designed, they're conductive, so that they're designed to be able to use them on the touchscreen.
Yeah, and again, they're all custom made for each of the astronauts. The chairs themselves are also custom fitted. There are a couple of different sizes, and the armrests can be adjusted for the astronauts' preference. And so, you know, we want to make sure, again, the crew is as comfortable and as safe as possible for landing. The seats will actually recline up to its landing position, and then there is a 5-point belt that will keep the astronauts in place to make sure that everything is nice and comfortable for the team.
And we have a Dragon tracker, and that's what you're seeing on your screen. You can see that Dragon is currently to the west of South America there. And on their way, you can kind of see their trajectory heading towards the coast of Florida for their splashdown today.
So yeah, we are expecting to enter that that blackout period in about 2 minutes here. We should hear the core communicate to the team here in a couple of minutes that we are again entering that blackout period, and then we'll reestablish communication once we're through with that.
Dragon, SpaceX for entry brief.
Go SpaceX.
Jared, you're looking good. No deltas to timeline. Vehicle's nominal, tracking no issues. The deorbit burn was right down the middle with nominal landing site targeting. No deltas on weather or recovery, and we're looking forward to having you home shortly.
And copy that, SpaceX. Good deorbit burn. Vehicle's healthy. Recovery forces are there. Weather's looking good. See you guys soon.
Good readback.
So we heard some awesome calls from the core. The deorbit burn looked good. Re-entry and weather all look good. So everything you would want to hear for Splashdown, we got it. And so things are looking great for Splashdown in about 20 minutes here. So super exciting, and things will start to get very, very dynamic, and a lot of events will happen over the next 20 minutes or so. So at this point, we are entering here shortly a communications blackout period, which lasts approximately 7 minutes due to plasma formation around the spacecraft. During this time, no vehicle telemetry is received by mission control or the recovery team, and no external commanding of the vehicle or voice communication is possible. As a reminder, though, Dragon is designed to fly itself and continues to autonomously.
200 kilometer altitude.
So Dragon is designed to fly itself and continues to autonomously use its Draco thrusters to orient itself during re-entry. So during re-entry, the vehicle will be slowing down from orbital velocity, which is approximately 17,500 miles an hour, all the way down to about 350 to 400 miles an hour before we deploy those chutes.
And we did hear a call out of 200 kilometers. That is basically telling us that the Dragon capsule is getting closer and closer to Earth. Again, they went all the way out to orbit at about 575 kilometers from Earth. I think the furthest they went was 590 kilometers. But now they're on their way back home, so they're approximately 200 kilometers at this moment. And again, today we are bringing the crew back home. We've begun several operations during this deorbit sequence, but actually deorbit and return home began yesterday. We did have a couple phase burns yesterday that brought the vehicle down to approximately 365 kilometers, and now we're getting closer and closer to bringing the crew back home. It's getting really exciting over here. Can't wait to see them back on Earth after their trip to orbit.
Yeah, so Jesse mentioned yesterday we started some downhill phasing burns. There were 2 of them to lower the altitude. Earlier today we saw, we didn't see, but we got confirmation of the trunk jettison. We completed our deorbit burn successfully, and right now Dragon is going through its re-entry phase and through its blackout communications portion. And shortly here we're going to have splashdown after our parachutes deploy. And, you know, I can't believe this mission has come and gone so quickly. The crew has been, again, super busy, and I do want to remind all of our viewers that this Inspiration 4 mission, this Inspiration 4 crew, it's all for a great cause. We want to make sure that we further human space exploration. We want to do a ton of science, and we want to fundraise for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The goal is $200 million. Jared Isaacman donated $100 million himself, and we're a little over halfway through the other $100 million that we want to fundraise. So if you're watching on YouTube, if you have a computer nearby, you can go to inspiration4.com/donate and support the cause there. There's also a bunch of different things like auctions.
Dragon, SpaceX, please verify crew entry preparations complete with tablets, restraints, visors, and feet.
And copy that, SpaceX. We were just waiting a little bit longer, but we'll do it right now. SpaceX Dragon, tablets are secure, restraints are tightened, visors are down. We are ready to come home.
We copy all, Dragon. Approximately 4 minutes, 30 seconds until comm blackout. We'll see you on the other side at 2300.
Talk to you at 2300.
Just under 5 minutes away from that blackout period. So what you're seeing on your screen is the core, the crew operations and resources engineer communicating with the crew on board Dragon, preparing for re-entry back into the Earth's atmosphere. So they're closing their visors and making sure that their 5-point harnesses are secure, basically doing all their preparations for that re-entry. And again, if you're just now joining us, you are tuned into the Inspiration 4 mission. This is the first all-civilian crew out to orbit, and now they've been out there for about 3 days and now making their way back. And the crew on board is Jared Isaacman, who's the commander for the mission. He is the 38-year-old CEO of Shift 4 Payments. He has been a fighter pilot for many, many years. He's flown in over 100 air shows, and always does a fundraiser or a charity event with every one of his air shows, and he's doing the same thing with this mission, which is pretty incredible.
Up next we have Haley Arsenault. She's 29 years old, and she is actually the youngest American to fly in space ever. She's also the first.
Moving away from its teeters by his attitude.
Continuing to get great calls. Haley is also the first in space with a prosthetic. She is a pediatric cancer survivor and also a physician assistant at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, same place that saved her life when she was 10 years old.
Got Dr. Cyan Proctor on board, making her way back home with the crew. She is the 51-year-old mission pilot for this mission. She's from Tempe, Arizona, and she holds the seat of prosperity. She actually was awarded this seat for... we got a 2-minute call out for that expected blackout period. But Dr. Cyan Proctor actually was awarded the seat for starting her own, basically business for her artwork and her poetry. But she's also an incredible human being. She's an analog astronaut. She's always wanted to go to space. Almost became a NASA astronaut at one point.
To initial entry, attitude complete.
And now she's on the crew and was able to accomplish her dream.
And last but certainly not least is Chris Dombrowski. He's 42. He's a data engineer at Lockheed Martin and a United States Air Force veteran, a space enthusiast through and through. And you know, I was watching the docuseries, and he's just a husband and father first and foremost. And so those were our 4 crew members that are currently making their way back home, back down to Earth, and as part of the Inspiration 4 mission.
I'm so excited to see them come back home, and I can't wait to hear their stories from being out in space. Again, just the first all-civilian crew. You know, they're not professional astronauts. I can't wait to hear their stories coming back from that.
Yeah, it looks like they've had a really fun time. I was watching the interview with the St. Jude children yesterday, and they were throwing M&Ms all over the capsule.
Thermodynamic acceleration.
And with the microgravity, just darting them down and trying to chase them down. So they're obviously very, very good friends, and you know, work very, very well together.
And we are entering this blackout
100
period.
kilometer altitude.
We are entering this blackout period that we have mentioned. Again, it is an expected period of time where the vehicle is re-entering back into the Earth's atmosphere. That generates a lot of heat, about up to 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit, which causes a plasma layer to form around the vehicle. So we do lose comms with the crew. They've already done their pre-blackout period operations, making sure that their visors are closed, they're strapped in, and they're ready to re-enter back into the Earth's atmosphere. And so we do expect to regain comms about 7 minutes after they've entered the blackout period.
So the view on your left is Mission Control in Hawthorne, SpaceX's headquarters. You can see that we've got some folks gathering. They're also very excited for Inspiration 4 to return back to Earth. And so, yeah, we're all waiting. We're actually about 20-25 minutes away from Splashdown off the coast of Florida. Again, Dragon, even throughout this blackout period, it can pilot itself essentially. So again, the crew just needs to make sure that you know, they're strapped in and enjoy the flight, because Dragon will take them to where they need to be.
Yeah, exactly. And as we mentioned earlier, you know, they don't really have to do anything aside from follow along with each event that is happening. So we did catch them earlier watching some movies on their flight back home. But yeah, they really don't need to do much, as Dragon is autonomous.
Yes. So after we splash down, for those that are maybe watching for the first time or wondering, well, how does Dragon get out of the water? So Dragon itself is designed to be waterproof.
80 kilometer altitude.
Loss of comm. Start of blackout period.
So we just heard the call-outs.
Anticipated acquisition of signal in 4 minutes and 35 seconds.
So we just heard the call out that Dragon is about 80 kilometers in altitude. We're entering that communications blackout period now, and we just got an update that it's expected to last about 4.5 minutes. So again, we'll reestablish communications with the crew after this blackout period, but we are entering the atmosphere at a very, very, very high velocity, and when we start to get a lot of friction from the atmosphere and the space capsule, we start to form that plasma, and plasma tends to interfere with communication. So it's a temporary communications blackout, and again, we're gonna be able to reconnect with them in about 4 minutes here.
And during this time, no vehicle telemetry is received by mission control or the recovery team. There's no external commanding of the vehicle or voice communication. That is not possible at this time. So as a reminder, Dragon is designed to fly itself and continues to fly autonomously using Draco thrusters to orient itself during this re-entry. Now, during this re-entry, the vehicle will be slowing down the orbital velocity from 17,500 miles per hour, and the use of just the atmosphere will bring the vehicle down to about 350 miles per hour before we even deploy the drogue chutes.
Yeah, a few minutes after we get communications again, we are expecting to deploy the sets of parachutes. We have two sets. The first, again, are drogue chutes. There's two of them. Their job is to slow the vehicle down from about 350 miles an hour to about 120 miles an hour. And those deploy at around 18,000 feet. Shortly after that, we'll deploy our main parachutes.
Yeah.
There's four of them. Those are larger, circular, orange and white chutes. And their job is to slow the vehicle down from 120 miles an hour to about 15 miles an hour, and then we'll make splashdown off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean. So yeah, Dragon is, again, flying itself. Even the chutes that I had just mentioned about, there's sensors on Dragon that detect altitude and pressure, and they will determine when to fire those parachutes. And so pretty much everything on Dragon is autonomous, and again, it's steering itself. It's taking the inspiration for a crew where they need to go for their targeted splashdown.
Again, if you're just now joining us, we're currently in progress of the blackout period. What this is basically the Dragon spacecraft re-entering the Earth's atmosphere. It'll see temperatures, external temperatures of about 3,500 degrees Fahrenheit, building a plasma layer around the vehicle, preventing comms and communication with the Dragon spacecraft. It's expected to last about 4.5 minutes. We're a little over halfway through that right now, so we should, in a couple minutes here, start hearing some comms from the core, checking in to regain that communication with Dragon. Seeing Dragon coming back down to Earth right there.
Yeah, this is amazing. This is the first shot of the Dragon capsule coming back as part of the Inspiration 4 mission. The crowd here is super excited seeing that for the first time as well. So yeah, a couple minutes left of the blackout period, and we should be getting comms reestablished with the crew here shortly.
What you're seeing on your screen right now is on the left-hand side. That is Mission Control Hawthorne.
Dragon, GPS converged. Expect nominal altitude for drogue chute deploy.
Copy that, SpaceX. We show the same.
And those comms confirm that we have regained comms with Dragon, and they're getting ready for drogue deploy here shortly.
Yeah, I love these tracking shots. Again, that is Dragon in the center of your screen. We've got visuals of it, and we're expecting drogue chutes to deploy, and then the main chutes shortly after that here in a couple of minutes. Again, a lot of excitement for Inspiration 4 crew's return, waiting on drogue chute deploy. That happens at about 18,000 feet.
Dragon, brace for drogue window.
Copy that, SpaceX, we're bracing.
On re-entry, the team's experiencing about 3 to 5 Gs.
We heard some words to have them brace for drogue deploy. They will feel the difference in speed when the chutes do deploy. That was what the core mentioned there. That's such a cool shot of Dragon coming back down to Earth. It looks very fast in this camera view here.
Yeah, so this is a great shot of Dragon looking up at the drogue chutes. A lot of communication going back and forth between the crew and ground station, but the drogue's job is to slow the vehicle down from about 350 miles an hour to 120. We are expecting the main chutes for these to cut off and the main chutes to come shortly after this.
Dragon, these are 4 healthy mains. Dragon, descent right nominal. You have visual from the Cubby forces.
Copy that, SpaceX. Good news.
And at 4:04 p.m. Pacific time, we do have confirmation that the main chutes have deployed, and you can see that on your left-hand screen of a camera looking forward above the Dragon capsule, looking at those 4 main chutes.
1,000.
Copy, 1,000.
The next event coming up now is a visual confirmation of Splashdown. You can see the Dragon capsule on your right-hand screen slowly coming down now. We've talked about how fast the vehicle has been traveling, but they will be touching down approximately 15 miles per hour when they touch the Atlantic Ocean there.
800, SpaceX.
We copy 800.
Now, the Dragon 1 program had great success with the water landing, with 20 successful splashdowns over the course of that program, 9 of which were carried out by flight-proven Dragon spacecraft.
And this is a great shot. Dragon continuing to descend back towards Earth, again targeting a landing, a splashdown off the coast of Florida in the Atlantic Ocean.
Copy 600. Copy 400.
We're bracing.
We copy 200. Inspiration 4, on behalf of SpaceX, welcome home to planet Earth. Your mission has shown the world that space is for all of us and that everyday people can make extraordinary impacts in the world around them. Thank you for sharing your leadership, hope, generosity, and prosperity. And congratulations on your incredible journey.
Thanks so much, SpaceX. It was a heck of a ride for us. It's just getting started.
Copy, just getting started.
So welcome back. Inspiration 4, the Dragon Resilience capsule has returned. The crew has returned. What a phenomenal, phenomenal visual that we got. And I love that Jared said, we're just getting started.
Right. This is the beginning of their journey, of the next steps to the new era in human space flight. And just, you know, what an incredible mission. What an amazing view watching them touch down and splash down into the Atlantic Ocean. You could hear the crowd here. So excited to welcome the crew back home.
Yes. So we do have a couple of events that need to happen first before we can start to get the crew out of the capsule. So you can see some boats headed towards Dragon. And you know, the first job is to make sure that the area around Dragon is safe to approach, and then we'll go in there, start rigging the Dragon up to be able to hoist later on onto our main recovery vessel. So we also heard that Jared had given us the confirmation of stable 1. What that means is Dragon has splashdown and is upright. There's also a stable 2. Dragon can actually be upside down or sideways. It is waterproof and has systems where it can pump seawater into some bladders to help keep it upright. So again, stable 1 is the best possible scenario that we can achieve, and that's what we see on screen right now.
And just something to note, there are going to be a few operations that happen before the crew can get out of the capsule, so they will be strapped into their seats, remain strapped into their seats throughout these operations until, basically until hatch open, once we have the Dragon capsule on board the recovery vessel. So we do have some events coming up next. The fast boats will be approaching the Dragon capsule. They'll be doing some inspections to make sure that it is safe before we begin operations to lift Dragon out of the water onto the recovery vessel.
Dragon, SpaceX's go for recovery personnel to approach. Expect personnel alongside in 1 minute.
And copy that, SpaceX. We're looking forward to seeing you.
And Dragon, with that, we request to come aboard via display cam.
And say again, SpaceX.
Requesting permission to come aboard via display cam.
Permission granted. Come aboard, SpaceX.
Now what you're seeing on your screen is the recovery team approaching Dragon. Again, they will be starting to do some inspections. They'll do some ordnance and hypergol checks just to make sure that the vehicle is safe before they begin rigging Dragon to bring the vehicle onto the recovery vessel. And I think on the left-hand screen, that is someone on a jet ski helping to pull some of those chutes out of the water. They did automatically detach from Dragon once the vehicle splashed down. So now they are removing them from the water.
Yeah, it is super important that we cut those main parachutes. We don't want any type of wind or even the water to pull or drag the Dragon capsule. But when we did see Dragon splash down, we also saw really good visuals of the mains being cut as well. There is boat and personnel that are going to go out there and collect those chutes as part of the recovery operation. We are expecting about an hour from splashdown until we can get the crew outside of the capsule. Again, we're going through a series of safety checks and some other operations to get Dragon hoisted, rigged up, and lifted up onto the main recovery vessel before we can open that side hatch and get the crew out. It was very, very exciting. I think the couple of seconds leading up to splashdown, you could hear a pin drop here in Hawthorne. But as soon as we made contact with the water, excitement erupted, and it was just amazing.
Again, this is the Inspiration 4 crew, the first all-civilian mission to orbit with 4 incredible crew on board, and we now have an inside view on Dragon as they are sitting on the ocean water awaiting for the recovery operations. Looks like we got a selfie.
I think Dr. Cyan is taking some post-splashdown pictures. Well-deserved.
And again, this is standard procedure. We do have some crew climbing on board Dragon. They're performing some inspections, just making sure that the vehicle is safe prior to the next
Dragon
step.
SpaceX. Hypergol sweeps and ordnance checks are nominal. Rigging is in progress. Approximately 25 minutes until capsule lift. Stand by for PMC.
Some excitement from the crew on board. And if you noticed the difference in view, the camera actually has not moved, but the seats, from what you've seen previously of this view, the astronauts are actually rotated a little bit more forward, and that is for these return operations instead of the reclined back position. So that's why the view looks a little bit different.
So on the right-hand side, we do see the rigger climbing up on the Dragon capsule to attach some hardware, so that way Dragon can be lifted and hoisted out of the water using our main recovery ship, Ghost Searcher, which will be approaching the vehicle in a few minutes here. So that hardware is important, and that's how we get Dragon out. We hoist it and we actually put it on what's called a nest, and then we'll perform some more checkouts, make sure everything is good before we open up that side hatch.
You could see one of the techs climbing on board crew is the Dragon capsule's exterior. They do train for this event. They do go through a lot of training to make sure that they are qualified to perform these operations.
Dragon SpaceX, with you public.
If you're just now joining us, you are tuned into the Inspiration 4 mission. The all-civilian crew has now returned back to Earth. What you're seeing on your right-hand screen are recovery operations currently in progress. The crew has already done their safety check to make sure that the vehicle was okay to approach, and now they have begun some rigging operations. They're installing some of the rigging hardware that they need to be able to lift the capsule out of the water onto the recovery vessel. And on your left-hand screen is the live view inside of Dragon of the crew. And it's just been such an incredible mission so far. Like, they lifted off on Wednesday, expected to be in space for about 3 days. They were able to perform some science experiments. They were able to do some charity events, talk to, again, this mission was all for a fundraiser for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. So they got to talk to some St. Jude patients live while in space and doing backflips.
Yeah, and to think that this crew really formed about 6 months ago, and we cannot stress that this is the first all-civilian crew. Their day job is not being an astronaut. They were trained in the same simulations and same manuals that previous Dragon crew members were trained in, and they got together, threw together this amazing mission. Again, providing fundraising capabilities for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. They gave us a live on-orbit event yesterday. And they spent a couple of days in space, did some art, did some photography, did some somersaults, and now they're back on Earth. And in a few minutes here, they're gonna take a fresh breath of fresh air from fresh breath of Earth air for the first time in about 3 days. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah, I cannot wait to hear the stories that they have to tell us. We did get some of those live events, but they were out there for 3 days. That's quite a bit of time being out in microgravity in a spacecraft. So I'm really excited to hear what their experiences are really like. With the NASA crew missions, we typically get to hear, some of their thoughts of the Dragon spacecraft. Would love to hear more from, just a all-civilian crew this time around, not professional astronauts.
Yeah, and I think it's as we see the sun setting on the right-hand side, the boats are equipped with very strong lights to make sure that they can continue the operation in case the sun does go down. But one thing I do want to reiterate is weather and how great that's been for us. We had a phenomenal day in terms of weather Wednesday during ascent, and on return, you can look at the ocean now, and it's not choppy. There's no waves, essentially. It's basically like pool water, and so the Dragon capsule is there. It's floating there now because it's not choppy. The recovery team can get in there, do their jobs without worrying about any other external factors.
Yeah, that's extremely important. Safety is number one here at SpaceX, so we always want to make sure that we're keeping these events during an environment that is safe, and weather plays a very big factor into that. And not just for the crew on board Dragon, but the recovery team there, which you've been currently seeing climbing on Dragon, installing the rigging. They're on boats, so it's really important to make sure that the weather conditions are accommodating to these operations.
Yeah, so we are expecting the team to finish installing all of the equipment needed to lift Dragon out of the water in a few minutes. And we should see another boat approach the Dragon capsule, and that will be where we essentially hook it up to a crane on the back of the boat, lift it up out of the water and onto the recovery vessel. The Dragon vehicle is looking nice and toasty. I think if we had daytime shots, it would look essentially like a marshmallow. Again, when it's re-entering the Earth, it can get quite hot on the exterior, and the Pika material is doing its job and absorbing the brunt of that heat. But there's a side hatch. I mean, that's where the crew is going to egress out of. That side hatch was sealed 3 days ago, and it hasn't been opened since. And so, typically, missions with crew go to the International Space Station. The crew will ingress and egress out of that top hatch that you see there. But because we weren't going to the International Space Station for this mission, we installed that super cool cupola, and that hatch is going to stay closed. But the team will be exiting out of the side hatch in a few minutes here.
Right now, we're currently performing recovery operations. We have a crew there on one of the fast boats installing rigging onto the Dragon capsule. This will help them lift the Dragon capsule onto the recovery vessel into what we call the nest, the Dragon nest on board. We'll reorient and locate the vehicle on the recovery ship in a position where we can open the hatch and then have the crew step out for the first time since Wednesday. When they open the hatch, we will have a medical officer check on them first. It's pretty standard procedure to make sure, they have been out in space for 3 days. So we do want to make sure that the crew is okay. There will be a team there helping them every bit of the way to make sure that they are okay as they walk to the medical room on the recovery vessel. What you're seeing right now on your screen on the left-hand side is a live view inside of Dragon. View from behind the displays on your left-hand side there. That is Commander Jared Isaacman, and to his right is Dr. Cyan Proctor, who was the pilot for this mission. They're now back down on Earth. What an amazing homecoming day for this crew. Such an exciting mission.
So after landing, to recap the events, it took about 10 minutes for the recovery crew to complete their safety checks. And then once they completed that, the team began to prepare Dragon to be lifted onto the recovery vessel. As part of the preparation for this lift, one member of the recovery team that we saw on screen climbed on top of the capsule, so that way they can attach Dragon's hoist rings and connect the lifting lines. Again, we are estimating about an hour after splashdown until we are able to raise Dragon up and out of the water onto the recovery boat and remove the crew from the spacecraft. And then, Jesse just mentioned, after medical checkouts, the crew will return to the Cape by helicopter and be rejoined by their friends and family.
If you're just now joining us, you are watching the Inspiration 4 mission. The Inspiration 4 crew, first all-civilian crew to orbit, is now back down on Earth and currently in progress of the recovery operations. They're currently out in the Atlantic Ocean as the team is rigging up the capsule to get it ready to be lifted onto the recovery vessel. And what you're seeing on your left-hand screen is a live view of the crew inside of the vehicle at the moment.
Yeah, we splashed down just a few minutes after 4 p.m. Pacific time. We also had great visuals of the Dragon spacecraft returning back to Earth. We saw some really great shots from the Dragon vehicle looking upwards to the drogue chutes and the main parachutes. And then we had a nice soft water landing in the Atlantic Ocean. And again, we're waiting for the rigging equipment to be installed. That way we can get the vehicle out of the water and then the crew out of the Dragon Resilience capsule.
Rigging is complete. Approximately 5 minutes until capsule lift.
Okay, copy that, 5 minutes, and we are back to in-flight entertainment.
We copy in-flight entertainment.
The crew is having a great time with in-flight entertainment. So yeah, it looks like they're all in great spirits. We have a really cool shot on the right-hand side of the screen. That is the back of Ghost Searcher, the main recovery vessel. Dragon is in the background, as well as some other supporting recovery vessel ships as well.
Yeah, this is, again, pretty incredible to see where we are today with this mission, first all-civilian crew. And ironically, it's so much like they just went and flew on an airplane as they're watching movies, waiting to, deboard the spacecraft. And again, this mission is a fundraiser for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. We've got some great news that we've raised up to $157 million so far. How incredible to do such a inspiring mission like this, as well as raise $157 million for such an amazing cause.
Yeah, so in the last 90 minutes, essentially, we raised $4 million. Keep it up, everyone. Thank you so much. Again, it's going to a great cause, and it's benefiting a lot of wonderful people.
Again, currently in progress are recovery operations. So far, they've already inspected the capsule for safety before installing some rigging hardware. We got some comms that they will be ready for, that rigging setup is complete, and they will be lifting the vehicle in a few minutes here. Again, this is Ghost Searcher, and what you're seeing on your right-hand screen at the end of Ghost Searcher is the Dragon nest. It's basically the nest or stand that Dragon will be lifted onto and set into. We also heard some comms that the crew is in good spirits, watching some entertainment while they wait to be lifted onto Ghost Searcher and for hatch opening so that they can egress the vehicle.
Yeah, they've been busy doing a lot of work for a lot of great causes. So now that they're back on land, we want to give them a very smooth experience. They can just sit back, relax. We'll take care of everything else. We can see that the gap between the Go Searcher boat and Dragon is starting to close. We are expecting to hoist Dragon out of the water and again put it on that nest that you see on the bottom middle of your screen in a few minutes here.
And weather has been just great for us today, actually through this whole mission. This is such a unique mission where we did have to ensure that weather upon liftoff as well as return would be well. And not just the weather in the atmosphere, but the water where we are landing. And you can see on your screen that it's very calm. This makes it really a lot easier for the crew to perform the recovery operations. Just great weather all around for this mission.
And so we just saw the crew tossing a line to the other member of the recovery crew on the Dragon capsule itself. And so this last bit of distance, we want to make sure that it is nice and controlled for the Dragon vehicle to come on in and make its way up the recovery vessel.
And for safety purposes, the crew does remain strapped into their seats throughout this entire process as they are going to be lifted onto the boat. And again, they will have the first person to check on them when the hatch opens will be a medical officer to ensure that they are safe and healthy before they start egressing the vehicle. And that'll be when they will be allowed to get out of their seats. We've got a crew member on the Dragon capsule at the moment. And again, they are helping with the rigging and hoisting process to lift that Dragon capsule onto the recovery vessel. And again, they have done several hours of training for this particular role. So they are professionals.
Dragon, brace for capsule lift.
You heard some comms. They are getting ready to lift the Dragon capsule. You saw the last recovery crew member hop off of the Dragon capsule into the water and onto the fast boat there as they clear the way for lifting the Dragon capsule.
And here comes Dragon out of the water.
Incredible. Dragon is being lifted onto the recovery vessel into the Dragon nest. That is what you see them setting the vehicle down on right there.
You can see at the very bottom of Dragon some water coming out. Again, that's the ballast system that helps keep Dragon upright in the seawater or in the ocean. So it's functioning as designed, and Dragon is now on the recovery vessel.
Dragon's almost a little bit of a mix of a rocket, spacecraft, and a little bit of a boat.
It does everything you need it to.
Yeah, exactly.
Dragon, welcome aboard the recovery vessel. Recovery personnel are completing final checks. Stand by for translation to egress platform in approximately 1 minute.
Copy. Thanks. Good to be aboard.
I see some fist pumps from Dr. Cyan as aboard the Dragon capsule right now. Next event coming up after the team does some safety checks is opening the side hatch. That's going to be very, very exciting. We're going to see the crew for the first time, and they're going to see Earth for the first time since 3 days ago.
Well, they've seen Earth.
They've seen Earth.
But from space.
Yes.
They'll see Earth from Earth now.
They'll become Earthlings again.
And what you heard was some comms, just letting the crew know that they will be translating the Dragon on the nest and reorienting it into a position on Ghost Searcher so that it is in a good, stable position for them to open the hatch.
So while Dragon's top hatch houses the cupola, the astronauts will egress from Dragon's side hatch. That's what you see in the center of your screen, pending capsule orientation from the water. So before opening the hatch, the spacecraft has to equalize the cabin pressure with the outside environment. Once the hatch is open, that will be Jared, Haley, Cyan, and Chris's first breath of fresh Earth air since boarding Falcon 9 at the start of their mission on September 15th.
If you're just now joining us, you are watching the Inspiration 4 mission. The Inspiration 4 crew is back home on Earth. We have lifted Dragon with the crew onto the recovery vessel, and currently in a minute or so, they should be translating the vehicle into a position where they can open the side hatch and then perform the next steps for egressing, which will include a medical officer checking on them prior to that egress.
Yeah, and on the right-hand side of your screen, that's a live shot inside the capsule.
Dragon, translation imminent.
There it is. They are translating the vehicle to just under the helicopter pad on the vessel. Looks like they're starting to wash it down, get it clean, prepared for that hatch opening.
Yeah, this is essentially an egress or a platform for the crew members to exit. Dragon is quite large, and the side hatch is quite a bit a ways up, and so we want to make sure that when we open the side hatch, they can just comfortably get out.
And what they have there is a ladder as they prep for hatch opening. There's a few things that they do have to do here for preparation before they open up that side hatch.
Yeah, things are moving quite quickly. We splashed down about 40 minutes ago, and now Dragon is on the main recovery vessel on the right-hand side of the screen. That is, again, a live view inside of the capsule. You can't see their faces, but on the left-hand side of that shot, that's Jared Isaacman, the mission commander. To his right is Dr. Cyan Proctor, the mission pilot. To Dr. Cyan's right is Chris Zembrowski, the mission specialist, and to Jared Isaacman's left is Haley Arsenault, the medical officer of the mission. And I'm sure they're all excited to come back to Earth and probably still enjoying some in-flight entertainment, as Jared called it.
Yeah, what a crew for this mission. Just such incredible individuals, raising money for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, doing science experiments while out in orbit, let alone just being the first all-civilian crew to go to orbit. It's just been so inspirational, and I can't wait to see them egress the vehicle shortly here.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a very, very exciting time. Yeah, all the science that they've done, all of that data is going to be available essentially to the public. And so, you know, all the experiments that they've done is definitely going to benefit a larger populace than just this specific mission.
Right, and so far, this mission has raised up to $157 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, which is incredible. That's going to save a lot of children's lives. Just an incredible mission from start to finish here.
Dragon, stand by for side hatch opening and egress. This will be our last call from you. Congratulations, Inspiration 4 crew. Signing off.
Great comms. There you can see the side hatch is now officially open, and some exciting waves from the crew. Now they are putting on some protection along the hatch door for while they egress the vehicle here.
So we have members of the recovery team inside the capsule with the crew members. They're doing some checkouts, make sure everything is good before the crew can exit the capsule. But this is certainly very, very exciting. Again, that hatch has been closed and sealed for 3 days. This is the first time it's opened since we lifted off Wednesday, September 15th. And we have some fist pumps from Jared. I'm sure the entire crew is super excited.
Could see them waving. Lots of excitement from the crew as they're getting ready to egress the Dragon spacecraft. It looks like they are taking their tablets from each of the crew members in preparation for this egress. Now, there is a procedure that they will go through even now as they egress the vehicle. It won't just be all of them getting out at once. They will follow a procedure. I believe they will be starting with egress of seat 1. If you're just now joining us, you are tuned into the Inspiration 4 all-civilian mission to orbit with the Inspiration 4 crew back home on Earth, getting ready to egress the Dragon vehicle here shortly.
More exciting fist bumps.
This
is such a great shot.
How incredible. Some hearts. Love it.
Again, that was the crew members of Inspiration 4, as excited as ever. They are back on Earth on the recovery vessel, just waiting to exit the Dragon spacecraft. Some fist bumps going around.
Again, as the crew does begin their egress, they will have a team that does help them as they egress or exit the vehicle. As they have been out in microgravity for the last 3 days, they have not felt the gravity of their own body in 3 days. So this is very standard procedure to have some support and help as they egress the vehicle. Right now, it looks like they are removing the footrests at the bottom of their seats. This will give them some space as they exit.
Yeah, that is a good thing to note that when we land, we also recline the seats back down to make it a little bit easier for the astronauts and crew members to exit the vehicle.
And it looks like we have our first crew member, Haley Arsenault, egressing the vehicle. She was sitting in seat 1 to the left. She looks very excited, even if we're just looking at the backside of her SpaceX spacesuit helmet. And there she is. Medical Officer Haley Arsenault has now egressed the vehicle, the first of the Inspiration 4 crew, and so very excited. Lots of waves, thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
getting a little photo up. And it looks like up next is Dr. Cyan Proctor.
Yeah, this is very exciting for the crew to be exiting the capsule and finishing their Inspiration 4 mission, a mission that's done so much for folks around the world.
Yes, absolutely inspiring all the way around. Just an incredible mission with an incredible crew.
And here comes Dr. Cyan Proctor.
There she is, excited as ever. Dr. Cyan Proctor. Oh, I love it. Love it.
Just strutting on down.
I know, no problem at all. Looks like mission specialist Chris Sembrowski is up next to egress the vehicle. Looks like some dancing there. Again, there is crew there to help them egress to make sure that they do not damage their suits or themselves on their way out.
And that is Chris Sembrowski, again, the mission specialist. Again, with a smile all over his face, super excited, ready to go.
Yeah, there we go. Last but not least, we have Commander Jared Isaacman getting ready to egress the vehicle as well. The final fourth Inspiration 4 crew member of the first all-civilian crew mission to orbit.
And what a way to close it out. He was really the person with the vision.
There he is. Commander Jared Isaacman of the Inspiration 4 crew. So excited.
Handshakes and hugs all around.
Amazing. Now they will be doing a standard procedure, going into the medical room on the recovery vessel and doing some medical checks to make sure that the crew is safe and healthy. And then they will hop on a helicopter and head back to Florida.
Yeah, well, now that Jared, Haley, Cyan, and Chris are safely back home on Earth, and getting checked out by our medical team, we're going to wrap up our live coverage of their historic return. We started this day about 2 hours ago. We had successful trunk separation. We completed a deorbit burn, closed the nose cone. We got through that blackout period of communications. Both sets of chutes deployed, awesome. And the crew splashdown, we hoisted them up, and they have just exited the vehicle.
Next up, they will catch a helicopter ride back to shore where they will be rejoined by their families. So welcome back to the Inspiration 4 crew. It has been an honor and a privilege to share their journey with all of you as we continue this new era in human spaceflight.
Yes, for updates, check out our social media. Also, be sure to donate to St. Jude. There's a donation button if you're watching on YouTube on the right-hand side of your screen. The Netflix documentary is coming out with its 5th and final episode here shortly as well, and that will conclude liftoff and splashdown return of the Inspiration 4 mission. Again, thank you to everyone that has joined us so far, and thank you everyone for following along. We'll see you next time.